you start recording.
Yeah, I do record.
I almost
I record
hit the wrong
every
button.
single one of them. And I share almost all of them. There's only been one that I haven't shared.
Why is that?
Upon request.
Who requested that?
One of the other ladies that was.
Oh, we're on record.
Yeah. Yeah, we're on record. All right, so let's talk about our auras, because that's what's going on for this chapter. This long-ass chapter was all about the various different types of auras. And so let's start with talking about which one they are. So we've got the divine aura, the psychic aura, the mental aura, the emotional aura, the astral aura, and the eccentric. Is that how that says? Is that what that means? I probably slaughtered it. It's just what I do. Okay, so he says on page 180 in my book, it says the 3 spiritual cauldrons are just inner portals for our auric field. Just as the image of the classical witch's cauldron is filled with the liquid, which in turn steams and boils out, so too are our cauldrons, continuously taking in energy from different realms of reality. When filtered through ourselves, are expressed as an auric field around us. This function is similar to breathing. We're always taking in information from our multidimensional energetic environment and filtering it through our cauldrons and releasing it into the auric field around us. So this is where he's talking about each cauldron possesses 2 different dimensional bands of reality. The cauldron of warming is a focal point for our lower self processes. Am I saying that right? Esoteric?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And astral energies. The cauldron of movement is the focal point for our middle self processes, which are the mental and emotional energies. And then the cauldron of wisdom as a focal point for our higher self processes, which is the psychic and the divine energies. He talks about the multi-dimensional realities within these fields. He says when our focus is predominantly on the physical bodies, we have 6 other bodies that also exist within our own dimensional band of reality. Think of the dimensional bands of reality as channels of energy all existing within the same space. Just like radio waves, they're seemingly invisible and unperceivable. But if you use a radio and tune into the right station by honing into that frequency, that radio station emerges. So like you can clearly hear that particular radio frequency. So he says by using the spiritual cauldrons, we can learn to tune into the different dimensional bands in different degrees. So I wanted to talk about let me find it. Okay. I read this earlier today, but I'm just trying to locate where I'm going. So bear with me, guys. Okay. Because he got pretty deep into this chapter. All right, let's talk about the multidimensional. Well, let's talk about reality maps first. This is right after figure 18, the relation to the 3 cauldrons. Because in that picture, you can see how each one is slightly different. So the bigger auric field or the defined field is often viewed as that oval shape around the whole body, almost like the first layer, and then just underneath that is also oval shaped. And you don't get more humanoid or human shaped until you get into the middle and lower cauldrons, where they start to take the shape of the body. They're the closest to the body, so they have different things. And in here he talks about each one of those. That's what I was trying to find. So okay. Different level of zoom focus. So the ficus looks like are they seeing layers or rearranged different ways. Okay, he says these maps, these reality maps are, where is it? I just had it. Okay, this says the first answer. I'm on page 182 at this point, guys. The first answer is that everyone's psychic perception is different. Think of each psychic as having different levels of zoom focus. When a psychic looks at the aura, they may see the layers rearranged in different ways, and they may also perceive subtler distinctions or more generalized auric bodies. The second reason is that this particular reality map helps us to understand which energies are tied to which parts of the world tree along our three souls and the three cauldron model. The most important reason, however, is that this order of auric layers and levels of reality help us to understand the mechanics of magic. It clearly charts out the steps we take in casting magic, how it goes from our physical reality to the divine, what steps we take to receive the manifestation, and how the magic is returned as a result from the divine or our physical reality. Do you guys remember in the chapter where I'm trying to find it and I can't remember where the heck he put it in this chapter, where he's talking about what each one is used for? Like the divine energy, because I remember he was talking about there was a point where psychic vampires will hone in and hit you in the which one was it? In the emotional and or astral aura field, where they leech from that. I can't find the page. Okay. Okay, I think I might have found it. Okay, in multidimensional magic, to perform successful magic, we start with a physical. We may gather physical ingredients such as candles, herbs, poppets, crystals, etc. We may even hold our psychic prompt gesture of crossing our fingers. This begins the energy work. We then create an energetic container for it in the why am I having such a hard time with that word? Esoteric, by creating space for the magic. This is expressed as clearing the mind and getting into an altered state. Setting aside a time to perform the magic and casting magic by creating sacred space. It says next you push the container of magic along with what's in it, which is often referred to as a thought form, into the astral by filling it with our willpower and willing our intentions to manifest. Why am I not able to find that? Do you know what I'm talking about, Shannon? Like where he talks about the different. Yeah, and I'm trying to like locate it, and I'm not getting anywhere with that. Oh, okay. Okay, so the esoteric, the very first layer of the aura is called the esoteric body. I think I'm on page 184 or 185 or whatever one you're on.
It's etheric.
Oh, etheric, okay.
Etheric.
Yeah, I'm master of slaughtering words.
It's the etherical plane. So like
say again?
What, Kathy?
I was just saying to remember it, like it's with the ethereal plane.
Oh, okay,
Where
okay.
that word is coming from.
Yeah, I'm horrible at pronouncing words, and
That's
I've
fine.
never.
My brain has to tie it into something else, so that's.
I'm horribly dyslexic, and I have never claimed to be an amazing reader. Okay. Okay, so say that word again. Etheric, right? Okay. The etheric body is the most accessible layer of the aura to see, and what people usually see when they begin to see auras. That's going to be that like bright one that's around your body. It appears as an outline around a person ranging from a few centimeters to a few inches in width. He says at first it will usually look ether-like, a transparent substance like heat rising off of hot pavement. And I thought for a second, I've seen that, where it looks like it's wiggly. Or as a whitish or grayish haze around a person. With time and development, the psychic witch will begin to perceive the etheric body in full color. The word ether comes from the Latin phrase, I'm going to slaughter that word again, so I'm not even bothered, which translates to the upper pure bright air. So that's going to be like that first layer that you see that he has mentioned as the divine. What is it? Divine. The divine part of the aura. Okay, and then he says. So substance that filled the upper regions of the abodes of the gods, which they breathe the same way humans depended upon breathing air. This gives us a clue of the nature of this field. As a metaphysical energy, Plato wrote that there is the most translucent kind, which is called by the name Aether. Right? In his work, Timaeus. Okay, so he says the most significant insight into the nature of this field is gained by understanding its name from the Greek alchemist sciences. Aether was the name given to the fifth elemental force and makes up reality, also known as quintessence in Latin, and more commonly today in English as spirit. Is the divine elemental force which permeates and composes each of the four elements. Okay, so the etheric body penetrates every particle that creates matter and is the force that acts as a container to hold everything together in a grid-like contour. And then I want to get into the next ones. He tries to explain it with like using taking a picture. So like back when we had cameras before we had these, we'd actually take a print on film, and then they'd take the film or the negative of the film and create your pictures from it. So he tries to explain that process of the etheric body in the form of photography, original photography in the negative. He says this process occurs from the film capturing light into its crystalline structure and recording it. This negative is similar to the etheric realm in the sense that it's from the actual photograph. From it, the actual photograph is developed. But until it does, is only a transparent blueprint of the image that resembles it, but it's not quite the image itself. He gets really like detailed on trying to get you to understand how this works, but I'm trying to jump between that to each one so we know which levels they are. It says, when we cast a spell as witches, the first thing we do is create a sacred space to work with. An old metaphysical trick to receiving manifestation is clearing out the physical space within your life for the manifestation to anchor into physical reality. If all physical objects have an etheric field, it would only make sense that by clearing excessive physical clutter, We are allowing the space for a few new etheric manifestations to develop, as there are fewer etheric fields in the way. For example, if you're trying to manifest a job, you will need to create room in your schedule for it to be fulfilled. Or in my case, he's talking about when writing the book, he had to create time to write the book. So he made room for the manifestation to happen, which I think is interesting. And then how did he tie that directly into the etheric field? I think what he was trying to say, how this works, is that because the etheric field being not solid, it leaves room for us to create. It's like in the space where creation occurs. Does that make sense? And I think the idea of making room for what it is you're trying to manifest is smart. So, and then of course, nowhere in here does he say, "Hey, do it and you're make a wish and it'll just poof and be there." He absolutely tells you that you need to move things around to create a physical, however you want to view that, way for your particular request to materialize. Because if there's no room for a manifestation to happen, then it makes it kind of hard. So the second layer is the astral layer. The astral body. The astral body still remains a rough shape of the physical body, being the next layer out of the etheric body, which holds the energetic matrix of form, which I thought was cool. The astral body is usually physically seen as swirling colors, like a nebulous cloud of light. However, being next to the emotional body, it can change form and shape shift, and has unique ability to create an astral double of itself, which I thought was an interesting thing. And we get further on into, I think it's in this one. Is it in this one? It might not be in this one. I was pretty sure that I took a highlighter to some of this. So he says here, it has a unique ability to create an astral double of itself or portions of itself and detach from the rest of the energetic bodies. The astral body is also referred to as the fetch. A fetch is one of those things where when we create, what's a good way to describe that? So when we ask a spiritual being to do something for us, it's like somebody we sent, or some entity that we send out to do our bidding, is called a fetch. Sometimes the fetch can broadly refer to the lower selves. Sometimes the term fetch can apply to an artificial servitor spirit that one has created to do their bidding, or created out of their own energy system. Now, I hadn't thought about the process of a fetch being from ourselves. I had always considered a servitor as an entity that was not me. So this is a kind of a new concept that I'm thinking about. I don't know what you guys think about this, but it kind of like struck me as a little bit odd. He says, sometimes the fetch can refer to a vessel of the lower self taking on when shape-shifting into an animal while traveling in other realms, particularly in the ecstatic journeying and outer body experiences. The astral body can move through the inner and outer realms of reality and is the bridge between the physical and the spiritual realms without any concrete conception of time and space. So that's something to think about for a second. When we do astral travel, he mentions that we travel in animal form. What do you guys think of this part of the aura? It's really weird because, like, I think of auras as energies, but I hadn't considered the various types of energy within our aura field and how they were utilized. What do you think?
Well, I can see this concept of it.
He talks about, there's one part in here where he talks about when people see dark spirits, like dark shadow beings, and it mentions them as part of our astral self and relates it to what is it? The paralyzed state. Yeah, sleep paralysis. And he says because our astral body is not in our body, but we're conscious of it, which I think would kind of be a little bit scary. The astral body takes on the form of our animal instincts and fears and whatnot. So when we're in the dream paralyzed state, we see these as frightening instead of not frightening, which I think is very interesting. So I was like, that's neat. And then he proceeds to tell you guys, if you're in, paralyzed state, sleep paralysis, to try and get out of it, you can wiggle your try to will your toes to move or squish your face to kind of like bring back your body control so that you can reconnect with your astral body. I have not experienced that. I have absolutely not experienced that. I have experienced astral travel before, but I have not experienced sleep paralysis or.
It's scary.
Right, but he says specifically in here, when you experience that, to kind of calm your brain down, because what happens is that those animal instincts take over and fear becomes kind of the thing that happens. Or he calls it fight or flight safety mechanisms. He says, think of the feeling of a very young child or a small animal. You'll be getting close to the idea. This is also the body itself that is related to desires, needs, wants, and drives. Therefore, it is also associated with willpower. The astral body is part of us that dreams, and the dreamscapes and the astral plane of reality are pretty hard to distinguish if there's any distinguishing of them at all. When we dream, we are enacting and interacting with our desires, needs, wants, drives, stresses, and fears. It is our willpower and our unconscious emotions that are setting the stage and propelling us through the dreamscape, which is really interesting. It really makes you think about your dreams a whole different way. like when you start to go and you have an actual dream, are you in your brain? Are you somewhere else? Where are you? What are you doing? Like it really makes you start to think about the depth of that. And then when you wake up and you remember your dreams, were you really dreaming? So like after I read this chapter, I sat there for like maybe 40 minutes and was like, dude, there's so many things that happen in my dreams. I wonder, he says, is part of in this part of the energetic body that understands and experiences archetypes, memories, and dream symbols. The astral body is malleable and often without channeling direct willpower is unstable. This is why you can't see your hands or your feet in your dreams. And I had not thought about that until I read that sentence. I was like, he's right. Because your hands and your feet are very like fine-tuned things, and they require, keen visuals. So not having the ability to do that in the astral state would make sense why you don't have any hands or feet. I always ever see like bodies in general, but it's never been, specific. I had one guy come into the shop one time and he looked at me, he's telling me about how he does dream work and stuff like that. He goes, next time you're dreaming, look at your hand. Like try to look at your hand. And I was confused by this because I don't know how possible that is, to look at your hand when you're dreaming. He said that when you do that, you actually move into the astral state and become part of that realm, which I'm a little concerned about. So I don't know if that's quantum leaping or not. Because I've been watching some stuff about quantum mechanics, quantum entanglement, and I haven't even got into the quantum leaping yet, but I know there's scientific fact behind some of this stuff. So as I'm listening to reading this and trying to wrap my head around it, because I don't know about you guys, I'm having some hard times wrapping my head around some of this stuff. And I know that this guy is pretty educated. He's not trying to sell water to a well. Okay, so then he says, when astral projecting outside of the body, a duplicate is created. So essentially a same you is created outside of you in spirit form. He goes, think of this duplication as an astronaut suit. During an outer body astral projection experience, the mental awareness will split into two portions, one being the astral body around the person and the other being the astral double. And this is where he talks about that dream paralytic state here with dream paralysis. He says right at the end of page 187, he says a common report with sleep paralysis is that there's usually a dark, shadowy figure in the room. Sometimes this is reported as a hag witch or a monster or an alien. My daughter saw something running after her on all fours. So he goes, my personal belief is that it isn't any of these things, but instead this is an astral double we would typically enter to astral project. Because the astral body is connected to primal emotions, desires, and fears, it is in an unstable form. When one wakes up to find their body paralyzed and sees a shadowy figure in the room, it's only a normal reaction to become scared and panicked. And he said, this is what I highlighted, he said, since the astral body surrounding the physical body and the astral body's doubles are intricately linked, being the same energy body split into two, our astral double automatically takes on the fears and panic and takes on a hideous form. So it intentionally scares you on purpose. And my thought was, why? Why does it do that? There isn't an answer to that. but because maybe it being the primal instincts and only working on those emotions, because they're all emotions. Fear is an emotion, anxiety is an emotion, love isn't an emotion, but passion is an emotion. So the desires and stuff, those are all feelings. So if it automatically takes on the fear emotion, then how does the brain conceive something scary automatically? Does it just retrieve the most recent scary thing we saw? Or does it retrieve a scary experience or something that we think we like? I don't know. It's weird because if you never watched TV in your life and you never saw a horror movie, you never saw anything super scary, what would your brain pick? To perceive, because if you're perceiving an energy, you have to visualize it in some way, shape, or form. And if you're seeing a shadow figure and it becomes something in some sort of form, if you'd never watched anything on TV to give you this thing, how would you perceive something hideous? Food for thought. Because if you ever find yourself in a situation of sleep paralysis, he says, I found that staying calm is the best thing you can do. The more panicked and the more you panic and resist, the more terrifying the experience will be. From this state, you have two options. You can re-enter your dream, which, by the way, is not the easiest thing to do. And I've only been able to do this in the morning. So like when my alarm clock wakes me up at 6 a.m. in the morning and I'm in something, and then I go back to sleep, and then I go back into whatever I was in, and my alarm clock wakes me up again, and I turn it off, and then I end up back into it. It's not the easiest thing to do, and it doesn't happen all the time. And I've only been able to do that in the mornings, like right before fully waking up. And I can only do it like once. Or he says, or you can wake yourself up. If you want to re-enter your dreams, try to remain calm and close your eyes while focus on the swirling patterns behind your eyelids. This will usually do the trick. I'm not sure how I do it. I cannot give you this answer. I just do. I don't know about you guys, but I just do. However, if you wish to wake up, the preferred method to wake up is to direct your willpower to your toes and try to use all of your willpower to wiggle them consciously, breaking the paralysis of sleep. A more natural method is the scrunch your face method. It's basically moving your body. When you move your body, you're breaking the ties between your energy spaces. Yeah. Also suggests that you could cough. That means you actually have to formally think in order to make your body do something. He says, I believe that this is the astral body's. I believe that it is the astral body part of the soul that gets fragmented through traumas and left in different places within time and space. That's another concept to think about. Like when you leave a situation or a person, you leave parts of yourself there. I think this allows people to remain connected to you via cords that he does talk about later on. I wonder if that's a possibility here. He says it is these astral fragments that are called back in a process referred to as soul retrieval. I've read about this before. Like, 'cause I've actually heard a couple of different times that your soul can actually leave your body and just go somewhere, and then you have to call it back. And I didn't think much about it when I first read it, and then it came up again. And I was like, wait, there might be something to this. So this understanding that the astral body has the ability to leave parts of itself in other places would also explain the calling back your magic. You know, a lot of people call back their magic. They're actually calling back their astral selves. Another point to think about. He says, in which a magical practitioner is luring back aspects of ourselves to be reintegrated for wholeness, or calling back your magic, calling back your souls. Keep in mind that the astral body is part of the lower self, and think of it very much as like a scared or wounded animal or child that runs away to avoid more pain and abuse. Okay. These are parts of ourselves that are hiding out of fear due to traumatic events, just like a scared animal or child, the which performing a soul retrieval must gain these fragments as aspects of the self's trust and prove that it's safe to return. I assume this would be a really difficult process to do. And scary. Because if you're pulling back traumatic parts of your body, you have to deal with those when they come back to you. He doesn't really go into how that all works. Okay.
Does this happen when we're dreaming? That our soul leaves when we're sleeping?
I think it happens when you separate from certain energetic beings. So when we're with somebody, like say you're in an abusive relation for a really, really long time, and you get up enough power to leave that person, some of your trauma is still with them. Some of your energetic body is still with them. That's one of the ways that people can attach to you, through your energetic leftovers. That's how cords are attached to people in many different ways.
And that's why you can't stop thinking about it, because they left their drama with you.
Right. Exactly. And then that's why they have cord cutting rituals and different meditations where you can release your energetic ties and sever karmic contracts. He says the astral realm is where we experience and process information in a broader, more unconscious manner, transcending conscious thought. This layer of reality is thought to be the layer of reality in which we experience astral influence. I think of this as the subconscious because we have our conscious body where we can see and hear and think, and then we have our subconscious mind that we don't really have a lot of control over. It's there, and we know it's there, but we can't do anything about it. Unless we're in dream state where our subconscious mind takes over our thought process, which is why we dream. It says this layer of reality is thought to be the layer of reality in which we experience astral influences, which affect our moods and interactions without ever being consciously processed. It is believed that the astral realm was composed of different energies of planetary and zodiac, I think I said that right, influences that enact their will upon people, and that the astral was the space between the higher realm of the gods and the humans. The stellar influences were called the celestial spheres by the ancient Platonists, this is why it is called astral, which derives from the Latin astrum, meaning star, as it is referring to the heavenly influence of astrology. Now, this is where it got interesting. Okay, so you know how you go and you see the little halo on people? That's a real thing. Okay, it has to do with the influence of the astral realm. He says, where is it? Referring to heavenly influence of astrology. As such, it is also where the experience of the other spaces of reality as a place to interact with. So when it comes to manifestation and spell work, this layer of reality is connected to the primal willpower. What I mean by that is it's a layer where we hone what our specific desires are for spell work. These primal desires are classified as planetary powers. For example, if you want to cast a love spell, you would connect with the energy of Venus, the planetary power that governs love. So mostly this stage is about picking which planetary energy you will be aligning with. So in the astral realm, he is using this part of the auric field to direct your feelings. Essentially, this is where your emotions, your desires, your interests, your what it is you're doing. And if you break down spell work, when I had given you guys my spell work, my spell writing thing with writing your desires, your intentions, and stuff like this. Well, the astral body is where that part sits, where your direction, what is it you're doing, is part of it in your manifesting process, because manifesting is still the same as writing a spell. It's just a different term. Okay, and then we have the emotional layer of the auric field. This is called the emotional body. The emotional body is where the energy bodies begin losing their shape, being further removed from the etheric body of form, but close enough to hold a bit of its shape. It appears much like the astral body, being swirls of clouds-like colors and light within the aura. The emotional body is the bridge between the mental body and the astral body. It is also the bridge between the lower self and the middle self. So it says, as such, the emotional body can relay the information regarding the subtle energies and influences that the astral body detects and expresses that as feelings of intuition via physical sensations and emotional sensations, which the mental body can translate into understanding. This would be that intuitive thing that we all get every now and again when we're in a room full of people and we're like, maybe I shouldn't be here. This is the auric body that pertains to that. He says, on the other hand, a lot of our emotions are affected by thoughts and thinking, which is very true. The emotional body processes this and translates it down to the astral body. The emotional body is constantly shifting as we go through various emotions throughout the day. Okay, emotions that we continuously feel without shifting them to another state, such as depression, being to imprint the astral body and become more deeply rooted. In the cases of a trauma, a mental experience processed through the emotional body is sent down to the astral body, which can fracture and splinter it. You can train. It says the emotional body can be trained and worked with through the mind's mental body. We can learn to use our thoughts to condition our feelings, as in the case of affirmations. I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch that movie, The Secret, but this is the part of our astral field that connects to the law of attraction. Okay, so our feelings are either positive or negative. Okay, they're gonna, and when they're positive, they bring things to us. When they're negative, they create waves away from us. So in this part of that field, you can train your body to react a certain way or be a certain way through your feelings and your emotions. It says we can create states of emotional pain and suffering through repeat negative thinking or fears, past crap that happened to us that we don't want to deal with, or we can't get out of our head, or, oh, this bill is so horrible, and we just focus on that. It creates that negative feeling. That's going to create a vibration that's going to come from this etheric field. He says, being a part of the middle self, or the soul, the emotional body understands time and space and can experience and reflect those perceptions. Through cleansing our emotional bodies of the middle self regularly, we can wash the astral body of the lower self. So you can keep the lower vibrations at bay by cleaning and changing your emotional state when you find yourself in negative vibrations. He talks a little bit about the fairy tradition and how practitioners do certain kinds of cleansings. That's going to be on page 190. If you wanted to check through that, you can. We're getting a little bit late, so I'm going to try and get through some of this. The emotional body is also where we connect with others through relationships and how we feel with others. This is the aspect of the middle self or spider embodiment that connects us through emotional threads, cords. Okay, I was right. It was the emotional body that you ended up connected to other people. This is where those cords link between people. It's through their emotional body. These threads are connecting two or more people through emotional body. It is also the energy body that contains energetic cords and hooks in more toxic relationships. This is the part of the self that emotional vampires will drain energy from by creating a cord with an emotional body and mental body and manipulating the two to gain their sustenance. Sometimes emotional vampirism is unconscious, and in some rare cases, it's conscious. So there are people who are directly going to try to link to you to suck energy from you. That's why we feel so emotionally drained. That's why we feel stressed. That's why we feel depression, those kinds of things. When you're in a lower vibration and connected to a feeder, you're going to experience quite a lot of lower vibrations, resulting in things like depression. So when it comes to manifestation and spell work, this layer of reality is connected to how we emotionally feel. Remember the why that I was talking about in writing spells? This is going to be that. Like, what is it you want to, why do you want this? What are all of your feelings behind it? What's your reasons? All that stuff. So, and here he says, primarily it's how we want our desires manifested to feel on an emotional level when we receive it. In these terms, we want to divide the emotions into two primary aspects, positive and negative. Why? While this may seem like oversimplifying the spectrum of emotions, it's basically the process of spell work is focused on. For example, if we're casting a spell to find a new job, will we want to feel positive about the spell and not feel doubtful, sad, or worried? That makes sense? So energetically, we've created a container for the energy we have aligned with our willpower by connecting to a planetary power and separating it from our own personal energy field. And then telling the spell if we want manifestation to enact that planetary power positively or negatively using our emotions. Okay. And then when we receive the manifestation, we want to put ourselves in a state of the emotion that we believe we will feel when it's happening. I'm so glad that I sent you that link to watch the movie The Secret, because this is like did you guys get a chance to watch it? Like, did anybody watch it? Oh my God, you have
to.
Huh?
How long is it?
It's about like an hour and 20 minutes, I think.
Okay, I'll watch it
And
tomorrow.
you can watch it on YouTube if you don't have Prime. I sent both links. You got to watch it, Cassie?
Not yet. Luke's been out of town. So I
Okay.
will.
When you guys watch it, and after reading this chapter, you're gonna be like, oh, that makes total sense. Like, I know you're trying to understand my concepts of it, but as soon as you like see the video and see the movie, and then like you can go back and rewatch this whole thing if you want.
You'll find yourself
because you'll be like,
you'll
oh,
find,
okay.
after you watch it, after you've watched it, you'll find yourself thinking differently. It's like
you watched it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
It's so great. I love it.
It's so good. I want to rewatch it because, you know, you miss a lot. There's so much information.
Right, but as you go through this chapter, then watch that, you'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. So, like, the reason he's calling it manifestation and spell work, and how I look at things too when I was writing that spell working class, it is how it works. It's just understanding the separation between how people write spells and how psychic energy works. It's really neat that I'm reading this book because like it's like, oh my gosh. You know, it's almost like reaffirming. And I watched The Secret, I shit you not, like 10 years ago. That's when I was first introduced to The Secret. It was about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And I have had that same mindset since, like, you know, I was 16, 17 years old when I started researching, you know, the occult and stuff like that, and why I was questioning so many different things. And then I saw that. And I didn't even know about that. That was not introduced to me until I was in Washington State and in a company that I was working for. And it was part of their, what do you call that? You know, you read a good book, you watch something. So I was introduced to it at that point in my life. And I was like, oh my God, that explains so much shit. And then here we are reading this book and I'm like, oh my God, he defined it down into like psychic understanding. It's crazy. Sorry. As soon as you watch it, Shannon, I'm sure you will understand what I'm talking about. Right now, I feel like I'm yabbling and you guys don't really understand. But I think Terry understands how to link these two together.
Oh yes, it's amazing. So yeah, go watch it. You'll be like, what?
Right. And it's not like a movie, it's a documentary.
Yeah.
And the people that are in the movie, they're real people. Okay. One of the people who is in the movie that talks about, or in the documentary that talks about it, is the guy who wrote the book Chicken Soup for the Soul. Okay. Now you might find his story quite interesting. His idea for Chicken Soup for the Soul came in the shower. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so where was I? It says most often, unless you're working with the Malefista or binding spells, you will want to charge it to be positive to receive the benefits of its outcome, which is true. Because positive vibrations are going to bring you what you're looking for, where negative The concept of the secret or the law of attraction is this: what you put out into the universe, you get back from the universe. It does not matter whether or not it is positive or negative. What you put out is what you get. So if you are putting out negative something or saying, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, the universe is going, okay, I'll give you this because that's what you're asking me for. Period. Okay, so if you change your thought process and start talking about what you do want and not what you don't want, the universe responds to that in a different way. So it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it, but the documentary really makes it much easier. Okay. He says, for example, if you're casting for a job, you want to feel excited, happy, grateful, and relieved, just as you imagine that you will when you obtain it. All right. Then the fourth layer of the aura is called the mental body. The mental body loses its form and appears as an egg shape around the person. It isn't perceived as moving colors, but rather a faint light, usually with the light gold or yellow hue to it. I look at this as that shield. You know how we do that white light shield? That's how I see this particular work field. Geometric shapes and forms are created within the light of the mental body as the mind thinks different thoughts. Through these prolonged manner of thinking, these geometric shapes and forms can crystallize within the mental body as thought forms within the auric field. As such, these thoughts can either help or hinder us. It is thought that the mental body that we can express ourselves in our unique identities. It is the speaker and the listener. And it is part of ourselves that has beliefs, ideas, dreams, force. It's where your intuition comes from, or your intention, your intuition, your intention. So that first thing that you want to do, okay, well, I'm going to make a spell. Your intention for the spell is this part of the astral or the auric body. That's your intentions. The mental body is the part of ourselves that we most closely identify with and understand. It is the most identified with the middle self soul. In fact, it is that voice right now inside of your head that's narrating this text that you're reading. I must have skipped over that the first time I read this because now it's funny. Because when you're reading a book and you hear yourself reading in your head, but you're not actually reading out loud. It understands itself as an individual from others and has a concept of the self through the ego. It is the true bridge between the upper and lower selves, and it can translate emotional impulses sent from the astral body as intuition, and it can translate divine pulses transmitted through the psychic to be understood by the conscious mind. It says the mental body, as a spider, connects different ideas and thoughts to gain a bigger picture. It can also home in on details. It connects people together as distinct others through words and thoughts, conveying not only information about the physical reality to another person, but also the emotional intelligence of the lower self, as well as the abstract ideas and philosophies of the higher self. It is this part of our energy body that can manipulate and move things through the different parts of the world tree, and what binds the three souls of the person together. I highlighted, I said it points to the idea that the mental body can express, indicate, and create cause, in turn return effect into one's life. The mental body is seen as the veil of illusion, which separates us from the auric bodies of the higher self that understand its interconnectedness and oneness with all things. It was also viewed as the seal of the soul, the place where our conscious focus predominantly sits and is connected to the physical, mental facilities and processes of the brain. He is very wordy in some of these descriptions. I don't know if you guys it's definitely a little wordy. So, and then the fifth layer is the psychic. The psychic body. The psychic body is an egg shape around the person and is usually perceived as a deep indigo background similar to the night sky. This field is best thought of as a mirror that reflects information from the divine body. These bits of information are seen physically in streams of prismatic light flowing through this part of the aura against the night sky, acting as a mirror of will of the divine body. The concept of light being information is almost a universal concept. This is a place where we get our downloads. He says we're able to process what we receive in this auric body. Think of it as the divine body having information it wants to send them to the mental body. The psychic body is where the information is compressed like a zip file and packaged full of information that's available to be downloaded in other parts of the body. The psychic body's function and physical counterpart is the pineal gland. Now, I read somewhere that the pineal gland actually has crystals in there, like crystalline structures, which would make sense because we're able to connect in so many different ways. He says, remember earlier when discussing brainwave states, I said that the Lori Cabot believes that psychic information is unseen light and that the pineal gland receives this information and interprets it. This is the light it is receiving, those light streams flowing from the divine body into the physical body. The pineal gland receives the information and the rest of the brain then processes it. Now, if it's a form of light, we would need crystalline structures in our pineal gland to be able to interpret that. Because if you put certain crystals up to the light, they create lights. Like when they're refracted, light refraction off of glass or crystalline structures or crystals in general refract light in different colors. So it says, once it's processed, the information moves into the mental body of perception and understanding. The psychic body doesn't differentiate between the self and other mental and emotional body, or doesn't differentiate between the self and others as the mental and emotional bodies do. It is the first part of ourselves that is connected to the sense of unification with the fabric of existence, being the first layer that composes the higher self's soul. As such, it can receive information on potentially anything one could want. However, since it has less perception of boundaries and time and space, it doesn't always relay information in the correct terms, leaving the rational mind to piece together the information. So it says the theophostic, how do you say that word? Theophostic, I don't know.
How are you?
It's on page 194. It says the higher soul or the divine body interacts with the mental body, and it says the theophostical name. Okay. Name three. I can't do it. I'm sure you guys get a good laugh at me when I come up with these things. Name for this energetic body is the Buddhic body. I highlighted this portion because I thought it was interesting. This gives us even more insight to the nature of this energy body. The word Buddhic is named after Buddha and relates to the idea of the higher states of wisdom and universal love in the state of oneness and detachment from the ego of the mental body and the middle self. So there's that. And then the final layer is the divine layer. It's the sixth layer of the auric field and is called the divine body. The divine body is psychically perceived as pure light surrounding a person and emanating around their body. This light emits from the star of the higher soul self. This is where that halo thing comes in from the fairy traditions. The higher self is depicted as a dove descending and conjures up imagery of the Holy Spirit. If you look at depictions of the Holy Spirit dove descending upon a person or a place, you'll see a light emanating from it and engulfing the person. This is the perfect expression of the divine body, the radiation from the higher self soul. The divine body is also known as the Catheric temple. The word Catheric refers to Kether, here we go with the Kabbalah again. A Kabbalistic term used by ceremonial magicians in their map of consciousness. Are we like at a point where we are realizing everything's connected? Like every tradition under the sun. In reality called the tree of life. Kether means the crown. In Hebrew, it refers to the highest manifestation of consciousness that humanity can intellectually understand. We know that from the different levels and from reading the Kabbalah, or what little bit of that we read of the Kabbalah, because we didn't read the whole thing. It is the pure brilliance of the divine as well as our connection to divinity. The divine body holds the divine temple of our true will, whether we choose to fulfill it or not within our lifetime, as well as our agreements and soul contracts that we make prior to incarnation. The divine body contains the divine wisdom and has the temple for our life's path. In many ways, it is our individual and personal God self that is guiding our path, never having been separated from source. So he talks about in this part where, the halo represents the divine body. And then he says on page 195 that he says, in our model, the dove owl would be the bornless one, and the rays emitted would be our divine body, which is our connection to higher self. The concept can be summed up by the fairy witchcraft tradition founder Victor Anderson, who stated, God is self, self is God, and God is the person like myself. Likewise, Crowley is mentioned again in here. The prophet of Thelmia, Aleister Crowley, wrote in his Gnostic Mass Ritual, there is no part of me that is not of the gods. I don't know why Crowley is so scary to people. I will find this out. He doesn't seem like a scary person. And then that word Gnostic comes up. I've heard quite a bit about the Gnostics, but I think I might want to dive a little bit into learning some more. Have you guys heard anything about the Gnostics?
I haven't looked into it.
I haven't either, but Aleister Crowley comes up, so I wonder if he was also connected to that. And from what I heard, the Gnostic understanding that is that God is actually the devil. You have to look into it. The way that God is depicted in religion, it's complicated, and I heard about it and I was like, I don't know. So I have to look more into it. All right, and then he makes a Star Wars reference at the end of that chapter as well. All right, so when we get into multidimensional mind magic, I want to go right to exercise 74 because we're getting kind of late here, and this is a long chapter. And exercise 74 helps you create a ritual and a spell to help you manifest. Okay, he says this exercise can be physically performed or you can envision the whole thing in your mind. And I have done magic in my mind as well, or in a meditative state. But he has 14 different ways to do this. So he starts, the formula for the spell is as follows. He goes, you want to tune in, just means you'll start it. You want to align your souls, perform an energy cleanse of the physical space, cast a circle, call the corners, because you want to make sure that you have your elemental energies and open portals. Conjure the elemental energy you're using for the spell. This would be what you're using, like crystals or candles or whatnots. And then you want to conjure the planetary energy you're using for the spell. So he's gone through each and every single one of these. Now, I don't use planetary energy all that much, although I'm thinking I might start. So you want to tune into the plant that aligns with your intention. Okay, and then you want to feel the emotion you want the spell to have. So you'll want to think about that vibration. Is it a positive or a negative vibration? What is it? Your intention is, your whys behind it, so that you can create the emotions that you need to manifest whatever it is you're doing. Then you want to make a statement of your intention for the spell. Then you want to perform the spell workings. In my case, I write this out and then I would speak them and then burn them. That would be my spell workings. And then he says to visualize what the results will look like. Okay. This would be when you watch The Secret. I know, and Terry, you can understand what I'm saying. You remember in the documentary where he's sitting in the chair and visualizing the car? Do you remember, Terry? Where he's driving the car in his chair, and then he gets out of the chair and he pushes the lock button for the car. So he wants to visualize being in the car of his dreams. Okay, so basically that's the same. So you'll visualize the results of what they're going to look like, what you're going to experience them to be. Okay, so if you wanted to have $1,000 in your hands, you want to feel what that money feels like. You want to feel the experience of what you can do with it. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And then he says after that, you'll release the quarters, release the circle, and close the ritual. And then his example is really great. So he says, let me give you an example to help bring this to home. Let's say I'm doing a spell to ensure I have enough money to pay all my bills. I begin, as I always, by tuning in and aligning my souls. I make sure that the area I'm performing the magic in is physically clean and tidy before I do this. I cast a circle called the quarters and then focus on the element of earth for abundance, because he wants to bring in money. And fill myself with this energy and envision it filling the circle. I then call upon the planetary power of Jupiter for wealth, abundance, and expansion. That's why he gave us the planetary different alignments. And then he says he fills himself with the energy and envisions that energy filling the circle. Then he conjures the emotions of how relieved and secure I will feel when the spell has manifested, as if it's already there. Not if it's going to happen, but as if it's already there. Okay? Then he makes his statements of intent, saying, I desire to have enough money to pay my rent and bills and have $1,000 left over. I then proceed to perform the spell work. When the spell is completed, I take a moment to visualize what it will look like by envisioning my bank account with the amount of money and writing checks for the amount of my rent and my bills, then releasing the quarters. He goes, I tend to think of the magic circle like a giant cauldron of energy, a much larger version of the energy orb work, where I'm infusing it with energetic ingredients and commands. My magic circle is now filled with all of the magic I've raised within it, so it's time to release it out to the universe. I release the circle, and as I do, I say, and then he tells you what he says. He says, while saying this, I envision all of the magic rushing out into the universe as a giant sphere. I then close down, putting extra emphasis on grounding myself. That's where he releases the extra energy has left pent up. So I don't know about you guys, but I was really able to visualize how he does his ritual from the end of that. And I really think that if you haven't watched The Secret, watch it. Because it will help you visualize this understanding and this part of the chapter in a whole new way. And you really have to understand and conceptualize the reality of energy and how it works. I liked this chapter quite a lot, even though I had some hard times trying to get through it, because it really does take that concept of attraction and manifestation and brings it down to a psychic level, okay, and how it connects to each part of our bodies. So that does wrap up that ridiculously long chapter. I did struggle to get through that, but I strongly suggest that you watch The Secret. YouTube has it on there for free, okay? And it will really help you conceptualize this understanding. Don't get overwhelmed when you watch The Secret, because some people do kind of like freak out a little bit, like, oh crap, I have to monitor things. The reality is that you don't have to monitor things. You have to, what you're monitoring most is your emotional feelings. When your emotions are out of balance, you know it. Okay. And when you're out of balance and in a part of your emotional state that is a low vibration, you want to focus on changing that to something that's a more positive vibration so that you're not sitting in the lower cauldron and you're moving to your higher cauldron. That's how he's describing it. So, I would strongly suggest anybody who reads this book also watch that movie because it will really help make things so much better. All right, so we've got what, 2 chapters left? 15 and 16, just the conclusion, and 15 in the conclusion.
Just 15 in the conclusion.
Right? Let me check. I hope you guys followed me today. I feel like I slaughtered this chapter. I totally understood it, but I slaughtered it while I was trying to explain it. Yeah, so the conclusion's like a page and a half. So let's get the rest of it done for next week, and then we'll take our week break, or our week chat thing that we do between books.
I think you did just fine.
Miss Shannon, if you could post it to the group, that'd be wonderful.
Doing it now.
Are you okay, Cassie? You're like frozen over there. I swear I haven't seen you move at all. Terry either. You're both frozen. Is everybody frozen?
Yeah. I can't see myself. Hold on.
No, nobody's
I think
frozen.
everybody's frozen.
Nobody's frozen. It must be you.
Yeah, we're all
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I can't hear anybody.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Wow. She can't hear me.
Are you
Yay!
back?
I'm like, what's going on?
No, we're all good.
Okay. All right. I thought I was stuck in time warp or something. Everybody was like just staring at me all intently, but there's nobody responding. Okay, so Shannon, if you could go ahead and add that to the book club, that would be great. And then if you guys could send me your addresses, I will get these out to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay. It's killing me, man. All right, guys. So I'm gonna let you guys go. It's 8:30, and I will see you all next week. Okay.
Okay. See you later. Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Good night.
Good night.